So you've started your ETF investing journey with the usual suspects. Betashares A200 product, Vanguard's VAS product. You're investing in the top 200 companies and the top 300 companies in Australia. Maybe you're even interested in investing internationally and you've picked up VGS from Vanguard. And now you're interested in investing in specific themes and specific topics like solar energy, uranium mining maybe, the metaverse, the future of food production, electric vehicles, online retailing. All of these kinds of areas that you're interested in, you're looking for ETFs that can maybe cover them. And in the last year, Betashares, which is an ETF provider here in Australia, has brought out 10 new ETFs that cover some of these topics. And in this video, we're going to go through those ETFs. We're going to also go into the topic of thematic investing, look at what Betashares themselves say in terms of should you invest in these things and what should you look for. We'll also cover off some of the risks, and then we'll have a look at some of my favorite ETFs that came out of this list. So let's get into it. So the 10 ETFs I've classified into 3 categories: technology, environmental, and the often underrated other category, because I didn't know where to put the other 2. These ETFs have come out since December 2021. Some of them have come out in 2022. They're generally quite small in terms of market cap. We're looking at under $20 million. You know, as a reference, A200, which is quite a popular ETF, is over $2 billion in terms of market cap. So there's not a lot of money in these ETFs, but they also haven't been around for a long time. Now, also because there's not a lot of money and also because they're quite specialized, the fees are quite high. Some of them are 0.69, 0.35. They're about 10 times, in some cases 10 times larger than what you would pay on a normal broad-based index. Now, Betashares has categorized these ETFs as thematic ETFs. Now, I know you're wondering what exactly is this thematic investing, and it's essentially where Betashares has looked at some mega trends going on in the world. They specifically call out demographic changes, technological innovation, and climate change. And they've said, knowing these mega trends are occurring in the world, how can we position some ETFs or some indices that are going to follow these trends and take advantage of these trends, companies that are listed that are going to take advantage of them, and how can we provide products for everyday Australians that want to invest in these themes? So naturally, your next question is going to be, should I invest in these thematic ETFs? What should I look for? What kind of framework should I have? Now, Betashares in their own website has done some nice documentation explaining what you should look for. And they've basically said, ideally, the index should be a pure play exposure. Now, how do you know it's a pure play exposure? They've called out you should be looking for 2 key things. Number 1 is few overlapping holdings with the broader index, and secondly, low correlation to the broader index. Now, the few overlapping holdings makes kind of easy sense. Basically, you're looking for an ETF that doesn't have holdings that are already being held by the broader ETFs out there. Now, correlation is a little bit more complicated, but what you're essentially looking at is how does this particular ETF move in relation to the broader market? If it's positively correlated with the broader market, then it means the ETF goes up and down with the broader market. Negatively correlated means it goes in the opposite direction. And ideally, what Betashares has said is you should be looking for 0 or very low correlation, where they don't really go up and down together. They go in their own directions, not necessarily opposite, but one goes up, the other one may or may not go up. Now, this is where the wheels start to fall off a little bit when it comes to casual investing in ETFs, because for this bit, the data is not that easy to get. You almost have to do your own calculations to figure out, does this ETF have low correlation relative to the broader market? We're talking a bit of Excel work, a bit of downloading from Yahoo Finance, matrices, all that jazz. So this is where I worry for the everyday Australian, because I don't know if you're going to do this level of research when you're investing. Because I think most people, because you're probably like me, and I'm not saying I'm any better, you're sitting there saying, cryptocurrencies, that's a thing? Yeah, let's invest in CRYP, or electric cars, they go fast, petrol's expensive, Elon Musk is doing a good job, batteries are getting better storage, they can go further. Yeah, I think this is going to be a good ETF to invest in. That's what worries me. Try not to do that. Try to do the research, try to figure out what the correlation is, look at the overlapping holdings. So let's now get into the ETFs. We're actually looking at each of the categories, and I'll try and call out an ETF out of each section that I actually really like. So the first group of ETFs I wanted to look at from Betashares is their technology thematic ETFs. And this is iPay, iBuy, Game, eDoc, and the metaverse focusing ETFs. So I think immediately you can get the themes that they're trying to call out here. There's a real push into the future of online retail, digital health as people want to do more remote lifestyle type things, and video games and esports is a growing industry. The ETF that jumped out to me was the eDoc ETF around telemedicine and digital health, because I can see the narrative around this being, there's growth in healthcare. People want to do more telehealth where they don't want to necessarily go into the hospital. They're not as keen to go into hospital for their healthcare. Why can't I get it from home? All of that is coming together. Maybe this is an area where you might see additional growth in terms of revenues or market share for these different companies. And you can see some of the companies in there are not really companies you would have normally seen exposure through an S&P, NASDAQ, or anything even in Australia. When it comes to the environmental ETFs, the one that I liked in terms of this set was iEat, because it's got that focus on the future of food, growing population. We need more efficient ways of making food. Great, I've swallowed that brochure. The other two ETFs that I had in there, Betashares in terms of solar and the electric drive mobility type, again, they're fine in terms of the themes. I guess I'm just worried I would have picked it up already in terms of Tesla being in there through some of my other holdings. So some of my other ETFs would have quite a lot of overlap with this particular ETF. The other two ETFs that they've brought out recently is the Australian Quality ETF and the Uranium Miner. Now, the Australian Quality ETF reminds me a lot of how AFIC looks at companies in terms of high quality, good industries. It's a very narrow run at the top 200 companies, top 300 companies in Australia. So I can see that narrative there. But again, if you've already got a VAS or an A200, you've probably got quite a lot of overlap with this particular ETF. Now, the final ETF is the Uranium ETF, which is trying to give you exposure to the mining, refinement, and the production of nuclear energy, and uranium obviously as an input into that. They're trying to take advantage, it seems, of the recent spikes up in the uranium price, which may or may not be interesting to you. Obviously, this is going to be quite a personal one. There's going to be some ethical concerns maybe for some of you, but essentially they're trying to give you exposure to that price hike and potential movements of the uranium price. Now, in terms of risks in these ETFs, there's quite a lot of literature out there, and there's some literature actually out there that says often thematic ETFs can underperform the broader ETFs. So I'll put some links into that, but you can have a look at that. I think the key thing to call out here is normally investing in an individual company is the most riskiest in terms of price volatility. Then on the other extreme, you've got investing in ETFs where it's very broad, top 200, top 300 companies. There's quite a lot of companies which can absorb a lot of the price volatility. Then somewhere in between, you've got these thematic ETFs because you've got maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 companies in there, but they are concentrated in a certain industry or a certain type of commodity like the uranium one. So you just got to be conscious of that you're going to be taking on board quite a lot of exposure in that particular area as well. So hopefully you enjoy that video. I think one of the key things to call out with these thematic ETFs is you got to hang on to them for a while, I think, to see the trends come through, especially for, the metaverse, electric cars, all of that. So make sure your time horizon is a little bit more realistic than 1 or 2 years. Probably looking at another 10, 20 years for some of these ETFs. See you in the next video.